Welcome into WagerTalk TV. I'm Drew Martin, joined by Matt Josephs and Rob Vino from Sports Memo and WagerTalk.com. Guys, we're talking West Region here, NCAA Tournament. We got the 7-10 matchup, Oregon, the Ducks versus VCU. 138 being the total here, Matt. Oregon minus 5.5 over VCU. We got the Pac-12 and A-10 squaring off. You liking anything here?
The joke amongst the VCU fan base is because every year it feels like they're playing in the West region and they're playing the late game. And this year they're actually playing a West Coast team. And they are once again in the West region, although the whole thing is taking place in Indiana. And of course, they also have the last game of the night. When you look at this game, the first thing you have to look at when you look at any sort of opponent for VCU is how they handle the pressure and how their turnover is. And Oregon offensively is 69th. They only turn the ball over in about 17% of their possession. So that's a check mark in the Ducks' favor in terms of handling the Havoc style, because VCU, for those who are not familiar, they press you, and they've been really good at it so far this year. VCU is 9th overall in defensive turnover possessions. And so far, and that's just one of those things you have to look at. Last game, they came out against St. Bonaventure, and they lost the game 74-65. But Bones Highland, their most important player, got 3 fouls early in the first half. That was huge. That's not going to happen again. This team is led by a freshman point guard, Ace Baldwin, who's playing 40 minutes for the most part. And so Mike Rhodes is putting a lot of faith into his freshman point guard, Ace Baldwin. Talking to the Oregon play-by-play guy on my radio show, he said the two things that you look at when it comes to Oregon in terms of weaknesses is rebounding and occasionally sloppiness, and the fact they're not a deep basketball team. Well, VCU is a deeper basketball team, but if they get the wrong officiating crew, because Havoc is a very touchy-feely style at times, if they get the wrong crew, foul trouble becomes a bit of an issue for the Rams. So that's something to look at least early on. Are they calling the touch fouls on VCU? If they are, a live look would be coming in on Oregon. The other thing to consider here is when you look at Oregon stats, you kind of had a couple of different seasons with Oregon. There was the games without Will Richardson, so you can't really take those. And then N'Faly Dante plays a couple games. Now he's out for the season. They had a couple of COVID pauses themselves. After the last COVID pause, they've ripped off a bunch of victories outside that game against Oregon State. So Oregon's a really good team. They have Elite 8 level talent here. I think they move on this matchup, but I think VCU can make things interesting in terms of coming at them, trying to get them to play their pace, and trying to get them to play a kind of a helter-skelter style. I think Oregon can move on, but I think VCU can cover this number.
Robbie Vino, WagerTalk.com. What are you liking here, Oregon versus VCU?
Well, let's look at a couple of spread numbers here real quick. Drew, there's a contrast if you're talking about totals in this game. For VCU, 9-4 under the number their last 13 games. All 9 of those unders, guys, stayed under 137, which is the number that we're looking at right now as we speak about this contest. Oregon, however, 7-0 to the over in their last 7 games. 6 of those went over 137. The other one landed 137. So definitely contrasting numbers there for both of these teams where the total is concerned. Oregon is 5-1 against the spread their last 6. Matt mentioned how hot they had been up until that very last game against Oregon State. Versus non-conference tourney teams, not much for VCU, but they did beat Utah State. Played respectably on a neutral against West Virginia. Oregon only had 1 game non-conference against a tournament team. That game was against Missouri on a neutral, and they lost it. So their schedule didn't start until December, started a little later than others. I'm going to get to some matchups here. Matt brought up the must ability to be able to protect the basketball against VCU's Havoc defense. And while the numbers indicate that Oregon's pretty good at it statistically, I think if you go even a hair bit deeper, you find that the Pac-12 doesn't really ever show this type of defense. So are Oregon's numbers true, or are they going to be made to look a little bit different by this VCU style? I think it might take a while for Oregon's ball handlers to get used to this. If it doesn't, Oregon's in good shape if they handle Havoc right away. But they just haven't had a lot of chances, guys. The Pac-12 doesn't really come at you the way that VCU does. So we'll see how Oregon does. On the other hand, Oregon forces a lot of turnovers themselves, and Virginia Commonwealth is sloppy with the basketball. I think when I looked at the Ken Pom numbers, they ranked 224th as far as turnover percentage is concerned. So, again, some of those games are without Highland, and you have to take, weed those out. but I don't think that they make the number all of what it is. So maybe Oregon can force some turnovers against VCU. Oregon's a supremely good three-point shooting team. And you're talking about all 5 top scorers that shoot 35% or better. VCU plays good three-point defense, but it's tough when there's so many options. It's nice and easy when you have 1 or 2 guys and you can chase them off of the three-point line. But when you have 5, makes it a little more difficult. Matt hit on Will Richardson. Obviously, that's a big plus for Oregon since he's come back, and on February the 4th, they're 11-3 straight up. I think if it's close in the end, we haven't talked much about free throw shooting, but VCU is a great free throw shooting team, 76% as a unit, and they really don't have a liability on the floor when it comes to free throw shooting. 6 of their top 7 scorers all really good on the free throw line. Oregon's not bad themselves, but in a close game, you want teams that can make free throws. I'd have to lean Oregon a little bit here, guys, but I would be concerned with the start of this game. Maybe the way to play is VCU first half till Oregon gets used to it, and then maybe play Oregon game. I think once they get used to it, they're the better side. Just don't know how they're going to react right off the bat with their ball handling against VCU's pressure.
Matt, Robbie brings up a great point in terms of, possibly Oregon's offensive steal percentage being so good, like you brought up, maybe being a little bit fraudulent. Not only in this situation, just the lack of cross-pollination and conferences playing each other, and not a lot of teams in the Pac-12 playing the style of defense that VCU does. Just hearing him talk about that, I just wanted to give you kind of a last chance here to do you think that that's going to factor in at all? Or do you just think, Oregon's ball handlers are good enough to face this VCU defense?
Well, it's funny because when I talked to the Oregon play-by-play guy today and I asked him who in the Pac-12 most resembles VCU, he said Oregon does. He said that they are the team that would most resemble VCU because no one presses like them, no one plays like they do. So, at times we hear the cliche, a pressing team doesn't want to face another pressing team. Well, if that's the case, both of these teams, there's some, in terms of they both have the same style, then they both could force some turnovers. The advantage does come. Oregon's got a senior point guard. VCU's got a freshman point guard. So I think that's one of the places you can look. And I certainly agree with Rob in terms of the first half. And once again, not to beat this into a dead horse, but it could be a very good live betting game in terms of who's handling the other style best. Once again, foul trouble. If Oregon gets into foul trouble early, they're not a very deep team, whereas VCU is a deeper team. Is Bones Highland in foul trouble again? I don't think that's going to happen, but you could see some things certainly if you wait until at least a couple minutes into this game before you place your wager.
He's Matt Joseph, sportsmemo.com, and he's Robbie Vino, WagerTalk.com. Guys, check them both out. We also got the coupon code here, MM50. That's MM50, taking $50 off any March Madness package. So check it out at both websites, SportsMemo and WagerTalk.com.